Unlike other celebrations, we're not celebrating a birth. And the whole idea of Mahashivaratri, Ratri means night, is a peculiar festival involving fasting. Coincidentally, maybe, it arrives around about the same period of time as Lent, Ash Wednesday, and so on. And Shiva is depicted normally as Mahayogi, that is the supreme yogi of yogis, who shows us the way, who shows us the way of asceticism ideally, and using vibhuti called ash. And so ash is a very ancient ritualistic mark that people have used for thousands and thousands of years. And the vibhuti is not just any ash, it's ash from the burnt dung of a cow, because according to Ayurvedic system, cow dung has extremely powerful disinfectant properties. That's why we smear the cow dung on floors and walls and so on in India. And even if you have a cow patty and there's a spider who comes, you see that the spider gets consumed by presumably the acidity in the cow dung. So there are many things that we can discuss, but the title really that I have chosen is the name of Shiva, because Shiva, even though people consider Shiva to be a third member of a Hindu trinity, denoting destroying, still the name denies it, because the name means the one who is auspicious. And so we have to explore why that might be so. Why should we call this entity auspicious? Not suspicious, auspicious. So we will have to see. Many times people ask, I should have mentioned the question, mythology describes many events about Shiva, and so we take that primarily. No, because all of these mythological stories are meant to describe and elucidate the deep philosophy that Shiva represents. There is first of all, the name Rudra is mentioned, and we have, as time goes on, many Rudras, actually 11 Rudras. When we take the Upanishad, the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and the question is asked, the great sage Yajnavalkya, how many are the deities? And when it comes down to eventually 33, then 33, the Rudras are mentioned 11. And Rudra really implies suffering, implies difficulty, implies tears flowing. It implies a great deal of emotion. It implies a little turbulence, maybe lightning, that kind of thing. And so 11 Rudras are there. What are these Rudras? Rudra, meaning, a tearful response to suffering. Well, coincidentally, we have 5 organs of information, 5 organs that relate and interface with the world around us, with the objects of the world. And we have 5 organs that will react. And this brings us sorrow. The interaction with the world ultimately brings us a struggle. So Rudra is actually a popular form in which Shiva is worshipped. And this word Rudra has been translated variously, but the etymology of it, Ru, meaning scream or howl, and Dru, meaning moving or running. That's how we derive the term. It's from this root Ru that we have other words in Sanskrit or even in Hindi, Rudali, for the person who screams and sings mourning songs. no songs of weeping. And so the Lord Shiva is Rudra, the one that causes sufferings? No, because the word Shiva means auspicious, the one that saves us from these sufferings. If we are able to take our attention away from the external world and focus it more on this supreme entity, which Shiva represents, then all our sorrows get removed. There is an instance in mythology where the Devas and the Asuras are having a kind of cooperative effort. They are trying to churn the milky ocean, trying to get some nectar from it, the nectar of immortality. Everyone is looking for immortality. Ask all the Hollywood stars, that's what they're looking for. And they're looking for it sometimes in plastic surgery and so on. Never mind. The point is that we all look for to live forever. And nobody, not one person, can imagine themselves physically dead. Even if you dream, I dreamt I died and there was a body, there was a corpse sitting there. Still, there is some non-corpse entity that's looking at it. So the idea of immortality is behind many, many early religious practices, ancestor worship and so on. And the whole question of immortality is a quest. And it comes about in expression as religion and religious practice. So churning this milky ocean, many things come out, including not just ambrosia, but poison that threatens to flood the whole world and destroy it. Self-destruction of the various forces, positive and negative forces of the world. Now, of course, prior to that, the churning rod that they were both using, both these entities were using, was driven by Vasuki. That was the rope being used, and it was the danda, the rod, or the great Mount Meru, that was being used, and it was creating a hollow, a big pothole in the world. And so they employed Vishnu, who preserves everything. Please come along as a tortoise, and put this rod on your back, save the world in this way. But of course, as they were churning, this poison comes out, and Vishnu not being available, Shiva comes along, and he unhesitatingly takes this nectar, or I should say this poison, and swallows it, and ends up with a blue throat permanently, but saves the world. So Shiva, that's the one occasion in mythology where Shiva rescues the world. Now, we are inclined to think maybe there are three deities. Even if we go back to the conversation with Yajnavalkya and the question from Gargi, how many are the deities? And we've established 33. It goes below that also. And who are the 33? Well, 11 Rudras are there. We've discussed that already. And there are eight Vasus, and there are 12 Aditis. Aditya is the mother of all the gods, all the deities. And so 12 Adityas, we can easily understand what that means, because there are 12 months in the year, and we can reduce it simply to time. Then if we have 8 Vasus, well, there are 8 directions. There are 4 directions, compass directions, north, south, east, west, and 4 intermediate directions. And naturally, therefore, these are space, because Vasu means the one that dwells, the one that lives somewhere, the one that penetrates space. Now, that's not the end of it, because we don't have 33 yet. But even if we just take that much, then we have these components that are to do with creation. Creation, the running of everything, the preservation of things, But the whole idea of the whole of creation is it doesn't just end there, it ends in destruction. In modern science, there's a speculation that if there was a Big Bang, supposing there was such a thing, then we're either headed for a big crunch or we're headed for a dissolution, a dilution to the extent of nothingness. In any event, everything goes back. And this was described thousands of years ago as a state of laya. So this state of laya, this state of potentiality, we rehearse this every night because we ourselves go into this dream state where everything gets destroyed. And so it is Shiva that has three aspects, one deity with three expressions. This is the Trinity. It's not that there are three gods. We have to make sure we don't make that mistake. So Shiva is that aspect which is involved in the dissolution of things. Now we know, and Shiva in its iconography will have a trisula, that is a three-prodded spear, and we see it also with other deities in other parts of the world. So this trident is there. The god of the oceans in Greek mythology holds this, Neptune holds this three-pronged spear. And so the ancient idea really is things must happen in threes. There's a very interesting scientific discovery, and that is if you take a pendulum and you swing the pendulum will swing but eventually come to a stop. If you join it with another arm to the pendulum, it swings and comes to a stop. But if you take another one, third one, it doesn't come to a stop. It continues its swing. It's a very interesting experiment. So there are three forces which are in the world. This number three is very significant. If you ask why should we do japa, why should we repeat a mantra in the style of a japa that is 108 times? Why not 101? Why not a lot of times we have to repeat it? Why not 102? Why not 103? Why 108? It's because the significance of 9 is 3 times 3 times 3, that combination. And we know that every multiple of 9, the digits add up to 9 again. So in 3 and 3 and 3, these three sets, we've described everything. Let's take them one by one. There are these three aspects to make the world run, like a machine. There has to be an origin, a projection, a srishti. We can call it creation. There has to be a penetrating force which makes the world run. And so we might say that this is good for us and this enables us to discover the truth. And so we might put this as a force called sattva, the thing that tries to unite everything. And then the projecting force, srishti, we can call this rajas. And then there is a dissolving force, and that we can call tamas, darkness. So therefore, when we think of Shiva, we use the ratri, the night. The night, and in order to understand the significance of it, we would have to light lamps in order to remove the darkness, just as Shiva himself does. There are three iconographic aspects of Shiva. One, as the meditating Shiva. We all know it. Probably somebody looking out at the mountains, let's say the Himalayas, surrounded by wild nature, saw this beautiful mountain in front. Perhaps it was Mount Kailash itself, where Shiva is reputedly to live at its top. And of course, Mount Kailash gives us a representation, an iconographic representation, that is common in Shiva temples everywhere. And it represents this formless aspect. We can call it Anurupa, formless aspect of Shiva. So you cannot see the supreme principle of Shiva because you can only have a linga, means a sign, a signal. What does that mean? Supposing you have small children, let's say 2-year-olds, a boy and a girl, you put them in a bath together. How do you know the boy exists? Well, because there's a sign. So in this same way, we have to use a sign, a signal, let us say something representing Mount Kailash also, where the formless principle, which we call Shiva, is sitting there. It indicates that invisible presence which is there. And therefore we treat this in a kind of a way which indicates all the aspects of the other members of the Trinity, so to speak. Because if we take any aspect of them, they represent the totality which is there, just different modes or different aspects or different facets of one entity. So therefore Shiva can represent to Shaivites, Shiva can represent to people in the Tantric system the supreme, in the Tantric system, the energy of the universe, which only comes from Shiva also, seems to be separate. And that seeming separateness will find its culmination in yoga, a unity. All yoga really is to take the apparent separateness of ourselves and join it in a delightful unity of bliss. Of course, the yogis have a yogic language for that. They symbolize this Mount Kailash, or even Mount Meru, or Danda, in different expressions for the same thing, a kind of a rod, internal to the body, you call it Sushumna. And this subtle channel, if you will, according to the language of the yogis, allows all our energy, normally dispersed and scattered everywhere else, to be concentrated in one point and gradually unfold. All our potential is unfolding so that layers and levels of consciousness become exposed, unfolded like a flower opening up, bit by bit, step by step, until we arrive at the union of the Shakti and the Shiva in a glorious Sahasrara, thousand-petaled lotus, as it were, symbolized to be at the top of the head. So Shiva really represents the very highest. And we see Shiva in iconography carries the Trishula and also the Damaru. That is a kind of drum which has a kind of string and an apparatus that makes a noise where you twist the drum and it plays. So what is the significance of all of that? The Trishula will represent the three forces which are there, and we call these the gunas. And also representing the threefold nature of God, that is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva itself. That is these aspects of creation and preservation and dissolution, respectively. The Indian sage, seer scientists have expressed that for the universe to go through its various cycles, this Trinity concept, these three divine forces are essential. They're essential prerequisite. It's essential for these three forces to work in tandem, actually. In modern science, we find, as I say, a very interesting scientific appreciation and acceptance of this trinity of forces. And there was a man called Dr. Hans Peter Durr who made the experiment I mentioned previously, where he took this pendulum And it only really works in perpetuity if three arms of the pendulum are used. Before that, we don't see that it works at all. It just comes to a standstill because there are certain forces in nature that act on it. Now, these three arms of this pendulum seem to dance, as it were, in synergy with nature's forces and create a harmony, create some kind of dynamic movement. And this brings us, of course, to another form of Shiva familiar to us. That is Nataraja, Lord of the dance. It is a fact that dance really expresses great creativity. It is the dance of creation that is represented as a bronze image there outside the the largest laboratory in the world, known as the LHC, Large Hadron Collider. And there at CERN, on the Swiss-French border, we can see these tremendous forces being pushed around a circuit, several dozens of miles circuit, where hadrons are collided with each other, protons are smashed together, and the fallout is read by many data analysis to see what it all means. Now, I don't think that these scientists have really understood the physics of high velocity particles or subatomic particles, but nevertheless, this dynamic aspect, this understanding that particles can actually arrive from nowhere and disappear into seemingly oblivion. This kind of understanding really makes this statue of Shiva in a dancing mode extremely significant. The plenitude of Shiva's mutual functions seem to be antagonistic. We see on the one side the kind of vagrant image there, because unlike his brother deities, if you want to put it like that, his brother modes, he has no regal decorations. In fact, he's the friend of all the lowly. He's the friend of the hunchbacks, the distorted ones, the ones that society no longer wants. He's a friend of the snakes. He's a friend of those people who inhabit the cremation grounds, the ghouls, the ghosts. And that is really the beauty about this particular aspect of the Godhead, which is called Shiva. Occasionally we find the multitude of expressive aspects reduced maybe to 5 things. The beneficent manifestation of the deity of God. The destructive manifestation, the vagrant mendicant, the Lord of dances, the great Lord. These are among the titles included in much longer lists of the describing this Shiva. And the moon is there in his hair, representing the mind. He's the slayer of the elephant demon. He's the consort of the goddess Uma. He's the father of Skanda and also of Ganesha. He is the Lord of the dance, representing this dynamic movement, not just artistic movement, but representing the whole of the universe. And maybe the origin of the ring of flames that surrounds this image is probably in the destructive aspect of Shiva Rudra. But Shiva's destruction is finally identical with release, with moksha. That is what makes Shiva auspicious. And the curious thing about the word Shiva is if you take the Devanagari script and change the vowel, it's Shava, a corpse. Now a corpse is the most peaceful thing you can have. There's nothing more peaceful than a corpse. But you see, we go into that state of potential creativity. Every night we go into that state. And ultimately, after eons of time, humanly calculated, the whole of the universe will go into this state of pralaya, is the idea. And that is why it is part and parcel of the whole scheme. Birth, life, death, birth, life, death. So that guna, that evolutionary force represented by Shiva is actually tamas. Now we have the full significance of this Trishula. And then in terms of the drum, as long as the Lord dances, as long as the Lord beats the drum, the heartbeat of the universe continues. The preservation of the universe continues. Atoms fly. Flames are there. Dynamic movements of atomic energy is there. And we don't often register the human body in that way. But the human body is as atomic as any other thing. The Shiva, as the cosmic dancer, is the embodiment and manifestation of eternal energy. And eternal energy has 5 aspects, panchakriya, we can call it. It is creation, as I mentioned, it's srishti, the pouring forth or unfolding. It is the maintenance, that is sthiti, it is the duration, it is the destruction, the samhara, the taking back or reabsorption of what was projected. It is the tirubhava, it is the concealment, the veiling of true being behind the masks and garbs of apparitions, aloofness, display of maya. And 5, it is favor, anugraha it's called, acceptance of the devotee, acknowledgement of the pious endeavor of the yogi, bestowal of peace through a revelatory manifestation. The first of these groups of cooperative mutual antagonisms are there, and Shiva displays all of them. He displays them not only simultaneously, but he also displays them actually in sequence: birth, preservation, death. They are symbolized in the position of his hands and feet, the upper 3 hands being respectively creation, maintenance, destruction, and the foot that is planted. See, one leg is raised, the other one planted. In forgetfulness is concealment, and the foot that is raised up, uplifted, represents favor. And then the hand, postured a little bit like an elephant trunk, indicates the linkage of the 3 to the 2, the promises of peace to the soul that experiences the relationship. So all these 5 activities are made manifest simultaneously with the pulse of every movement, and also in sequence through the changes of time. If you wanted to see all these ancient carvings in India that are Shiva temples, the one particularly one is the Kailash temple, carved out of sheer rock. How was it made? Where did the rock go to? The tons and tons of rock that was removed? We don't know. But such was the dedication to the Lord Shiva. It is not just then that Shiva is a destroyer. It is a dancer, the creative dancer, beautifully, beautifully portrayed in that image. Then there is Shiva, the meditator. There is Shiva, the one who is indrawn. There is Shiva who has the 3rd eye. What is this 3rd eye? If we go to the ancient Indus civilization, any relics from there, we'll see one ancient figure, and there we find this mark on the forehead. And that mark, of course, we know corresponds to the pineal gland. The pineal gland is responsible for a great deal of intelligence, a great deal of demarcation of things, discernment, intelligence, and so on. So the ancient yogis would have understood this in the symbolism. And as I say, the meditating Shiva may well have been inspired by somebody gazing out of the Himalayan mountain, and in this way seeing the face of Shiva, seeing the origination of a river symbolizing life, the Ganga flowing down the hair, going onto the plains, giving life to all the creatures that live in the water and around the water. So there's tremendous significance in that particular meditating posture. We are there sky-clad with skins only there in deep meditation with the capacity to open up the inner eye of intuition. So we can see the meditative Shiva giving us the example of how to go inward and access our own divinity. So Shiva, in summary, is the Lord, third Lord, if you like, of the Trinity, not necessarily in that order though. The one responsible for the dissolution of the universe, yes, but also we can't ignore the Nataraja. And Shiva means the auspicious one. Adi Shankaracharya had said, Shiva is the one who purifies everyone by the utterance of his name. Shiva also indicates the one in whom the creation sleeps after this process of dissolution. And so we repeat this mantra, Om Namah Shivaya. The figures of Shiva shown in meditative pose we can contemplate on. You see, if you paint 1,000 pictures of the face of Shiva or Buddha, or even Swami Vivekananda say, because they all have some similar appearances, then whatever you meditate on comes to you. By contemplating on this, by painting 1,000 pictures, won't we also become imbued with peace, imbued with sanctity? Won't we also be indrawn to discover our own true nature within? So, one hand is raised in Abhaya, protection. One hand, Varada, in giving gifts. These are the two mudras very evident in the meditating Shiva. He has long matted hair. He's the hippie of the deities, from which flows the Ganga, wears a tiger, elephant skins, necklaces of snakes. Who else would greet them? And a garland of skulls with a third eye in between the eyebrows. And his consort, Parvati. Now, when we say consort, of course, it is well known that when we picture all of these aspects of the divine, there's a twofold aspect, like the two sides of the same coin. For example, Brahma does nothing without this vak, this word, this projection, this shasti energy, and that is put into a feminine form. There's vak, this vak Devi becomes Saraswati. And so it is Saraswati, it is the energy, the Shakti of it. Many people have tried to draw a comparison between the Christian Trinity and the Hindu Trinity. Well, there is some similarity. We can say that there is God the Father in the Christian Trinity. We can also put it as Mother, of course. But that is the Creator God. And then there is the Sun, the sustaining element, which is Vishnu. And then there is, of course, we might say, Shiva is the auspicious one because Shiva's Shakti is also that great, great one that moves everything, that not only creates but destroys. And so we might say that is spirit. So God the Father, God the Son, and the Spirit is there. And so there is that similarity, no doubt. Theologians, of course, may disagree with me on this. But then also, when we take the supreme, and Shiva is also denoted as the supreme principle, equivalent to Brahman. Brahman is only described as Sat Chit Ananda. So where is this Sat? Is it not life? Is it not the one that originates a kind of creativity? Is that not the same as Brahma? Is it accidental? No. Everything that we come across is linked back to the Sat Chit Ananda. And Chit, consciousness. Where do we get this consciousness from? It is this light that is Vishnu, the one that penetrates everywhere, that pervades everywhere, that gives intelligence to everything. It is only based on this intelligence that things move and evolve. And of course, then we have Ananda. Shiva is Ananda because Shiva is auspicious. And when we transcend or control first and then transcend the attachment to the sense world of objects through the avenues and gateways of the senses, when we have managed to do that, then we enter into the state of bliss. Shivratri is the one opportunity that we have, actually. It's the one occasion where fasting takes place, where we become meditative in the night and repeat the Maha Mantra there for Shiva. It is the one aspect where we decide that we will enter into this darkness, this tamas, with the light of knowledge. Shiva, it is said, is fond of and is propitiated by Abhisheka. At the puja tomorrow, this Abhisheka will be there. The waters of pure love get poured onto the lotus of the heart. And we repeat the mantras with Rudraksha beads. Rudra means uncompromising. Aksha means the eye. So it's very strict with the operation of the cosmic laws. But the prayer is known as an all-giving God, or the prayer is to an all-giving God, a Lord of mercy. When we repeat Namah Shivaya, Namah means, of course, salutation or prostration. Namah Shivaya means prostration to the Lord Shiva. In fact, we can break it down even further. Na is the screening power of the Lord that makes the soul to move in the world. Ma is the Shakti that binds him in the samsara, Ma, mother, cycle of births and deaths. And Si is the symbol of the Lord Shiva. Va, his grace. Ya, the soul. Na represents the veiling aspect, Tirodhana. Ma is Mala or impurity. And She of Shiva is the Lord Shiva. Va is the Shakti. Ya is the soul. We can break it down like that. The Mahashivratri really falls on the night of the 14th night of the waning fortnight. And the astrological significance of it really is that the sun is aligned, the moon is aligned. Of course, it falls on a moonless night tomorrow. And so special prayers to the Lord of destruction, it reminds us of the darkness. Of course, Mahashivratri means this great auspicious night. And the darkness also symbolizes our ignorance, the state in which most beings are in from a spiritual perspective. As this is a dark fortnight, devotees will light candles and lamps, but I cannot help but compare this to the forthcoming Ash Wednesday. In other words, we enter into that same kind of mood. This is the only festival, of course, that we have at night, as I mentioned, and it emphasizes prayers, meditation. It emphasizes the inner journey. Ratri or night is that which gives comfort to the mind, to the body, to the soul. And Shivaratri is that which brings such a deep sense of serenity. So meditation, which is done on this day, has a manifold effect, because as I mentioned, the astrological aspect of this, it links the sun and the moon in particular positions, so that is said to elevate the mind. Mahashivratri marks the night when Shiva reveals himself more easily, and so devotees will observe a fast, or at least limited food, to be able to receive this heightened energy, especially at midnight. Midnight is one of those 4 areas or 4 times which are auspicious, particularly suitable for meditation practice. The conjunction of day and night in the morning, conjunction of the same thing in the evening, the midday and the midnight. During Shivaratri, we take refuge in Shiva, as the upward surge of energy is high in the night. On Shivaratri, there are many devotees who try to keep awake on this night. And of course, chanting this Om Namah Shivaya, so the great mantra, and this gets repeated by devotees for the whole night if necessary. So Shiva, of course, as I mentioned, meaning auspiciousness, repeating this auspicious, just the word auspiciousness, auspiciousness, auspiciousness creates auspiciousness. Shivaratri marks also the marriage day for many. The mythological story, Lord Shiva and Parvati, their marriage. It's believed that Lord Shiva also performs this cosmic dance of creation and preservation and destruction, this Dandava dance, on this day. And Shiva is manifesting himself as this linga or sign, Shivaratri, and so it also can be called, referred to this in the text called Linga Purana. So, what is the meaning of this? Shiva pervades in the entire universe. He has no form actually, but is in every form. Shiva is one of the Trinity, having control over this laya, or this withdrawal, this dissolution or change, as against to the manifesting aspect or projecting aspect, Shusti, as also opposed to the sustenance, the sthiti. And laya, though, also means rhythm, leading to the concept of this Nataraja with the drum and the dance. So, in addition to Shusti, Sthiti, and Laya, there are 2 less talked about acts that we can think about. One is this Tirodhana, this concealment. One is this Anugraha, this revelation. This hiding power, or veiling power, is the power withdrawing creation at the great dissolution, what we might call the Mahapralaya, while also preserving essential elements of the universe. And Anugraha is the reverse phenomena, that is, to begin the creation. So Laya, Tirodhana, and Anugraha are performed by 3 aspects of Shiva, which are known, as I mentioned earlier, Rudra, Ishvara, and Sadashiva. Shiva is beauty, innocence, and pure consciousness. So therefore, worshipping Shiva, or this aspect, this particular concept, means to go deep within one's own consciousness. Because as we know, this Shiva is the Lord of meditation and the Lord of awakening, the Shiva Tattva, the Lord of transformation. This is what we can read into this particular aspect. We can take Shivaratri therefore, as an occasion to awaken ourselves from delusion. It's an opportunity to observe and recharge oneself. Well, we can say that wherever there is happiness, Shiva is present. Because we can see the image of Shiva is one of very simplicity and innocence. And so all Shiva needs, by the way, by offering is a bilwa leaf. Bilwa leaves signify the three tattvas of nature, that is the sattva, the rajas, and the tamas. And so we just have to surrender the positive and negative aspects of one's life to Shiva. So this is how we can maximize this Maha Shivaratri. But of course, the best offering we can ever make is to offer ourselves. We surrender ourselves to whatever our chosen ideal is. And most people, of course, who are devotees of Shiva will visit Shiva temples and so on. Of course, we know the famous ancient city of Kashi, which really means something that is shining. And there, Vishwanath temple is particularly dedicated to Shiva as a linga, as a sign. And so, but you know, everything in the whole of the universe is a sign. Everything is telling us, here, look here, at light and life and light. Everything, in fact, is that manifestation. The Bhagavad Gita, the 7th chapter, really tells us something very significant. Because if you have lost your faith in any way, or if you've lost the feeling of spirituality in any way, the 7th chapter onwards of the Bhagavad Gita is explicitly telling us you don't have to look very far. The taste in water, that is he, that is that one. I am the taste in water. So Shiva has very few requirements. A little bilwa leaf. He likes being bathed in the symbolic water and milk and so on, and honey and so on and so forth. All of those things. This nectar that is often combined and compiled because of this connection with his vehicle, Vahana. His vehicle, Vahana, is Nanda the bull, indicating strength, indicating a rural element to this, indicating the sacredness of the flowing grace which is there. And in the Chandogya Upanishad, there a bull is given along with a herd to a student, and the student has a task. Please go and get this multiplied, get the bull to multiply all these things. So the bull really is a symbol of manifestation. So we can see that creation, preservation, is all there contained within Shiva, actually. The most profound meaning where Shiva Linga is worshipped represents a transformation, really, between the unmanifest and the manifest. It's a kind of interface between the two. And it represents the starting and ending of the creation. And the worship with abhisheka, jal, water, and so on and so forth, and ingredients, is really an acknowledgement of this manifestation and potentiality, the Shiva Shakti a symbol which is there. It's really comparable to the cooling of the fission or fusion uh, for controlling energy release. The Sri Rudram is found in the Yajur Veda, so it's very ancient. It's chanted to pray to Shiva. The Shiva Mahimna Stotra is also there, and the Tandava Stotra. These can all be sung with devotion if you know them and understand them. So I think that would be a good start for us to understand the significance of Mahashivratri, but also to understand that we are bathed in auspiciousness. It is our good fortune to be here. It is our good fortune to be associated with spirituality. In the Viveka Shuddhamani, Shankaracharya points out that after many, many births, we come to this birth. And it took us a long time, it took us many, many births to come to this human birth. And it is lucky, fortunate for us, that we come across the spiritual ideas contained in scriptural truth. It is fortunate when we come across a teacher, and it is fortunate still to come with, and people object to this, but a male birth, because throughout the entire world, women are still second-class citizens, unfortunately. And so the male has still a dominant role, and as time goes on, hopefully this is becoming more adjusted. And if you don't take advantage, therefore, of all these opportunities, the human birth, the contact with the spiritual scriptures, teacher, and the conditions of your birth, then it's equivalent to a kind of suicide, because we have the opportunity with all of this equipment, with all of this auspiciousness around us, to access our inherent freedom, which is here and now, of course. We don't have to go anywhere for it. Well, we'll leave it at that, unless there are any final questions or comments.
Swamiji, I have a question.
Good, fantastic. Go ahead.
I've always wondered, is Shiva meditating on himself?
What do you think?
I,
The answer, of course, is yes.
okay.
The answer, of course, is yes. You see, it's not a question of meditating on himself as you would meditate on an object. It's meditation in the sense that it is withdrawing into your own self, your own pure being. What we call meditation is where there is only one thought in the mind. And what we call real concentration, the pinnacle of concentration, is called samadhi. We might say even nirvana, if you want to use that terminology. Its nature is bliss. So Shiva is withdrawing into his own essence, his own self. And not only that, but presenting the image so that we can do the same. We can follow the example. In other words, it's a kind of lesson in meditation. And the clues also are in the hand movements and gestures and symbols that an entity has, that the image has. So that when we look at that, it leads us in a meditative way. We can meditate on that. All these images come out of the depths of meditation. Some rishi meditated, let us say, in the mountains, and this image came. And not only the image came, but the revelation of the actuality of this came. And so we see that these festivals, these which are many and varied festivals, these images, they're all gateways to our own being. There is only one being. There is only one spirit. So even when we meditate, we are meditating ostensibly on our own existent being. And when we feel that oneness of being, where anything else is not only irrelevant, but is also gone, also disappears. Shiva, while meditating, is actually dissolving the world. The world is dissolved when we meditate in this way and become united with our own pure being, our own Atman. Does that make sense?
Yes, Swamiji, thank you.
Good. See, what we call meditation is really a kind of gateway preparation that allows us, that leads us inward, so to speak, inward or upward, depending on your image. And that means that we progressively go inwards. What helps us is to understand these 24 principles which are there, because they act as a kind of ladder. Now, in the tantric system, the yogic languages, we unfold different layers of consciousness. These are called chakras in the yogic language, or kind of vortexes, wheels. And they are represented for meditation purposes as lotuses with certain sound symbols around them, certain images. And the idea is that our attention is drawn away from the outside. And as it's developed on the inside through, let us say, devotion and worship, there is an opening up within us. And that opening up is purely divine grace operating within us. And in the language of the yogis, this is Shakti, that is described as the coiled up one Kundalini, female, feminine, that comes up, as it were, rises up within us, taking the breath along with us until we come to this point of pure ecstasy and this suspension of everything. Even the world is gone for us at that moment in time. That is why Shiva is Shiva. That is auspicious. All right, we leave it at that. Yes?
Thank you,
Om
Swamiji.
Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you.